What's up, guys? It's your girl Matt Cox here with MA Couture Crafting, and we are about to talk about the price of quilts. I know, it's uncomfortable, it's awkward, I get it. I think people need to think of quilts as art pieces, and I think if they do that, they can better understand the price of quilts. Maybe not. You guys probably have all seen it. There are like updated prices for how much quilts cost so that you can explain to people what exactly it is that we're doing and why we're charging so much. So I'm dropping a quilt on Friday, and if I were to charge someone for that quilt, I think I would charge probably about $2,500, like right off the bat. It's got a lot of tricks to it. It takes a minute to do. It's a daring quilt. I think that would be a fair price for it. That's how I feel. Now, I know some people will be shocked. So I post my quilts in different groups on Facebook, and my bags, my quilts and things, and I get some inquiries. You know, people are like, hey, I want to buy that. Do you take commissions? And I'm like, no. And one of the reasons I don't take commissions is because I don't think that people can hang. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know. And I never thought that my work was good enough at the time to really commission things. I'm a beginning quilter, so I'm like, I don't know. And I'm like, I just, and then I don't want to be offended, and then I don't want to offend anybody. It just, that's not where my heart is in, selling things. Although the quilt that I'm dropping on Friday, I'm tempted to sell those. But anyway, that's one of the reasons why I don't take commissions, though. It's just uncomfortable to price stuff for me. I stay away from it. But at the same time, I'm spending thousands of dollars to make people quilts and then give them away. And that's starting to get, I love it. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, oh, I'm spending a lot of money and I'm just giving them away. I just make a quilt and then just give it away. So, we'll figure it out. But let's talk about the price of quilts, because I don't think that people mean to offend me. I just don't think that people get it. And you don't know until you know. That's one of my favorite sayings, is you don't know until you know. So I post my bags, I post my quilts, and people are like, oh, that's cool. I'd give you $100 for that. One of my quilts. Like, oh, you're going to give me $100 for one of my quilts? Okay. My Tula Pink duffel bag, the luggage, I believe she quoted like $40 for that. And I know she doesn't know that that is designer fabric. And the fabric alone cost me probably $150 because I've chosen every single piece of fabric that Tula has in her line to put it in there. And it's a lined bag, and it's got the mesh, and it's got the special pulls. People don't know that. They don't know that I'm walking around with a seriously designer bag that's been hand done. That's a couture bag. $40 is not going to cut it for my Tula Pink luggage. And the reason why I even dove into making luggage is because I don't think Tula Pink was going to give me hers. I just don't think she was. So I had to make it myself and customize it. So let's talk about what people are quoting for the prices for 2020, probably about 2021. So the cost for materials, construction, and completing a 90 by 100 queen size quilt. These are not prices for an art or a pictorial quilt. Those will be much, much higher. So if you ask somebody to do a portrait of you or your family or something along those lines, just expect that to be extremely expensive. The materials for a queen size top, 15 yards, about 12 to 15 yards, at $13, just about $13 a pop, will cost you about $200. And that's pretty much what I spend for all my quilts. I spend at least $200 on the fabric, at least. And that's because, again, I'm choosing designer fabric. One of the ways to cut costs is to go thrifting, get the less expensive fabrics. But you guys know how I feel about things touching your body. I feel like it should be as luxurious as possible. And once you start touching quilt, like not big box store quilts, but once you start touching the quilt fabric of luxurious fabric, some K facet, it feels different, guys. You just don't want to go back. So don't touch it if you don't want to pay for it. So just for the fabric, 15 yards at $12.95, you've got $194. 8.5 yards of the back. So that's just the top. Then you need to do the back for the quilt, and that's going to run you about another $100. Then you've got to do another couple yards for the binding. That's going to run you $25. The batting, that's the stuffing. that goes inside the quilt. You've got to get a couple yards of that, and that's inexpensive. It'll cost you about $13 for that. Then you got to pay for your pattern, or you've got to design your pattern, and patterns are usually pretty inexpensive at $10, $12, $13, something along that. So your total cost of materials, before we get to tax, before we really have truly customized, like the quilt that I'm dropping on Friday, I keep talking about it because it's really exciting. That quilt has 19 different colors in it. It was crazy. Love that quilt. So the total cost of materials, just on like a base end, just on a, you know, you're using higher end fabrics at about $13 a yard, but just, that's kind of like base. You're looking at $400 just in fabrics and materials. Just, and I get it because I do it and I'm like, whoa. Then you've got the construction. So they're saying based on labor at $25 an hour. $25 an hour. Oh, and you could do easily 40 hours on a quilt. Easy. That's $1,000 right there. And that's such a low ball estimate. Like, it's so low, easily. And I'm, you know, and don't be hand quilting something. What? I mean, that can take you a year to do. And I do not quilt my own quilts. And quilting, for those of you guys who don't know, is taking the needle through all the layers. So the top, the batting, that inside stuffing stuff, and then the backing. The process of taking the needle through all of that is called quilting. I don't do that myself. I don't do it by hand, and I don't do it on my machines. I have done it. If it's smaller, sometimes I'll do it. But for the most part, I outsource that. And most long armors, I've seen some that are trying to undercut people, that they do 1 cent per square inch, but most do 2 cents per square inch. And that's not custom. That's the exact same design put into a computer across the board without them having to do anything tricky. So my quilt that I'm going to drop on Friday, I keep talking about it. You guys, I really want you to be excited about that quilt. It has a mix of me actually doing some quilting and the actual edge to edge, the computerized quilting on the outside of the quilt. So, you know, and I do not believe that I got cut a deal because part of it was not quilted. Like, no, that's not happening, because at the end of the day, that's custom now. So now we have custom quilting. But if you do it yourself, you will certainly save yourself some money if you can do your own quilting. And some people really enjoy that process of quilting. And that's not my process. I like to piece. I like to make the pretty tops, and then I like to send it away to the person to put it in on a computer, because I think it gives it a more, it just, for me and my skill level, I don't quilt very well. I do straight line quilting they're pretty cool, but no, not for some of the stuff that I want. So I outsource it. Again, 2 cents per square inch for 9,000 square inches, because again, we're doing a 90 by 100 queen size quilt. That's going to run you $180. You've got to pay for that. You've got to pay for the batting. It's a thing. So the total cost of just finishing the quilt with your long arm is $1. So the total cost of everything, and this is such a low ball number, is $1697.35 for a queen size quilt. So to all of you guys who are out there like, hey, you know, I want a t-shirt quilt. There are people who will do a t-shirt quilt for a couple $100, but you know what? You're supplying the t-shirts, which means you're doing the majority of the fabric. And there are ways to kind of cut costs. And there are some people who just enjoy doing it just for the sake of doing it, so they don't mind. But understand that this stuff is expensive. This is an expensive hobby. You've got your machine, you've got your thread, you've got your maintenance, you've got your time. And it's very, very difficult to price a quilt. It's you know, it's like, oh, is this too much? And how are you going to feel? And so I get it. You know, I get it on both ends, being a consumer, because sometimes I see stuff that I want that I can't have. For instance, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bisa. I wish that my Essence magazine was closer, because I'd show you guys a picture. I saw her paintings. I saw her art quilts, and I was like, oh, I want one. So I reached out to her. She was like, contact my manager. I contacted her manager. I couldn't even get her manager to tell me how much it might cost. And I would have given her what she wanted for it, because it's an art quilt. I was prepared. I'm like, yeah, whatever it is, I'll give it to her. But I couldn't even get the actual price. And I'm sure it's, you know, I'm sure it is what it is, but it's like, geez, I was prepared. I'm like, you know, but being a consumer, it's like, ooh, is that too much? Is it not? You know, I get it. I'm a consumer too. I like the things. So quilts are expensive. So just a queen size quilt, if somebody quotes you $1,700, just know that that's pretty much on the lower end, especially if they are using quality fabrics. I mean, you just, once you touch them, you just don't want to go back. But quilts are indeed expensive. They're a luxury. They're special. They're forever. And so if somebody makes you a quilt and gives it to you, oh my goodness, feel special, feel appreciated, feel loved, because it's a very, very good possibility that they have spent an arm and 3 legs on making that quilt for you. And that's all I'm really going to say about that. It's 2021 fabric in the US, because I'm not even going to talk about fabric prices in Australia, because that's just, whoa. Fabric prices in the US are about $13 a yard for the nicer, you know, more luxurious brand name fabrics. And that's, you know, that's kind of mid-range. Like I've seen some fabrics. Oh, let's talk about the Disney behind the scene, the custom fabrics that you see people making these super cute bags out of, right? For 1 yard of that, for 1 yard of custom fabric, you're looking at about $50. And that's if you can't get it when they drop the pre-sale. I'm going to have to do a whole video on the behind the scenes of trying to get that fabric. I'm going to insert a picture of what that fabric looks like, because you're probably like, what, Disney fabric? No, there are people who do these beautiful drawings of this Disney fabric, and you'll see bags. I'll put a bag up too. And you'll be assuming that that bag is going to be $20 when I guarantee you it will not be. Just alone on that fabric, they could have spent $50 for 1 yard. And that's the same thing. It's not like you get a bunch of different colors. Like you have to get separate colors and add those colors in to really make your bags pop. So please don't offer anybody $20 for designer bags. It's okay. You don't know until you know, but do a little research before you start throwing out your numbers to be sure that you're just not offending anybody. And if you can't swing it, you just can't swing it. You know, sometimes you have to save up for things, and you do what you got to do. And sometimes I just have to say, I can't have that, at least not right now. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video about how much quilts cost and why they cost what they cost. And if you want to know more about that, if you want me to redo this video, you want me to talk about something more in depth, let me know. Leave it in the comment section, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one. Okay, bye-bye.